guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're doing some silicone. As you see from the title, we're doing charge tubes and a blow-off valve from RPM. But it's not just this pipe right here, there's a lot more. All right, there's 4 hoses on this machine that we're going to be replacing today. A lot of silicone from our friends at RPM. We have the hose that's going to be on the passenger side that's going to house your blow-off valve from the intake to the intercooler. Then we have the hose that goes from the intercooler to your turbo outlet. Then we have the pipe that goes from the air filter box to the turbo. And last but not least, we have basically what is like the ram air that goes from the top ducting to the air box. So a lot of silicone here. We got it in a nice beautiful red to match our machine. And in this video, we're also going to install a catch can that's made specifically for the new Maverick R from our friends at RPM. Plus we got a couple other goodies that we need to all put together to make this a complete package. So the main thing here is the blow-off valve. Now, why do you want a blow-off valve? Pretty simple. The blow-off valve is going to extend the life of your turbo because it lets that pressure escape when you let off the throttle instead of being trapped in there and making the turbo surge. Now, why all the silicone? Now, basically, the silicone on the machine is actually pretty good. Can-Am did a good job. But since we're going to be raising the boost, running E85 on this machine and turning it up, we want something that's going to be stronger. And this is some really high quality stuff. And then it looks freaking cool. It's gonna be red, and that's my main thing. You're gonna be able to see this thing from the back. It's gonna be something like that. I mean, who's not gonna like that? That's gonna look really, really cool.
So cool.
I'm excited to install this stuff. RPM has been known to do some really nice, high quality silicone for quite some time. We run it on Big Blue. We run it on Stormtrooper. We run on basically everything. Now, RPM silicone has always been one of the most affordable ones on the market, but they never skip out on quality. This is really good stuff. There is a wire mesh on the internals of these boost charge tubes, and that's to keep it nice and strong and keep the silicone from expanding. They don't skip out on none of the quality. And if you want to pick up any of these products, make sure to hit up glifeutv.com. Also, individually for all these products, you'll see links in the description. Now, real quick, let's unbox this catch can. Before we talk about the catch can, let's talk about the blow-off valve real quick, because there is going to be a vacuum line reference that you get off the intake manifold. If you have a California model, you're going to use this piece here, which is pretty much going to be a T. You cut the hose off that goes to your emissions can, and you're pretty much going to tee off that, and that's going to be your vacuum source for your blow-off valve. If you don't have a California model, you will use this on a capped source that is on the intake, and that will be your vacuum line reference. So in this video, we'll be using this one because I actually deleted my emissions canisters.
Right to jail, right away.
So I won't be using that one. Now, to install these, you're not going to use a lot of tools. Basically 8mm for the tubes connected to the intercooler and 7mm for the tubes that are connected to the air box. I'm also going to use a 13mm to remove the air box completely. All right, let's get started. First, we'll start off with this one here that's going to hold the blow-off valve. Now, back here on top of the intake manifold, there's this cover. There's an 8mm holding that guy. Now you can remove that out of the way. While we have the ratchet in our hand, we'll actually take off the clamps. Now this whole thing should come off. Now, since we're here, we could show you the line. This line here, which I have capped off, normally goes to a evap canister that goes in this area. I cut all that off. So basically I have this hose that we're going to remove completely and put that little nipple for a reference for our blow-off valve. So this hose will not exist in your non-California model. So if you don't have a California model, you will not have this. You will actually have a rubber cap there. Just remove the cap and do the same exact process. Pretty simple. Now get your vacuum line and your unusual nipple here, and you should be able to put this together. So there's that, and basically we'll leave this hanging for now, and it's gonna go somewhere in this area straight to the blow-off valve. I'll put that cover back on. I'm gonna remove this hose completely, and then we'll install the charge tube. Now, here are the hoses side by side, and it's hard to tell on video, but these are definitely gonna be thicker, as well as they are wire reinforced, so they do not, you know, compress or collapse quite as easy as these do. So these are a lot softer, a lot more malleable, and honestly they are perfectly fine. But we're gonna be pushing this thing over 340 horsepower
To the moon!
so we're definitely gonna want to run some stronger tubes. Also, they look so much cooler, so there's that. All right, that tube's installed. So you are reusing these clamps These clamps are actually really good. They seem to have like another layer beneath the regular worm gear clamp, and what that does is actually create a pretty even seal around the whole tube. So god damn it. Now these are barbed fittings, so they don't come off very easily. Now they do give you a worm gear clamp in the box. I do prefer these Odoker clamps, so that's what we're gonna use. So make sure it's not touching anything, and we're gonna point this towards the back. Put this clamp on and we're done. All right, so we just need some zip ties for the reference hose, and we're basically done. So if you wanna have just a blow-off valve, nothing else, then this is what you're gonna do and install, and you'll have those cool noises. We're gonna do the full kit though, so follow along. Now what you just saw is basically gonna be the same exact process, so I'm just gonna tear off all these hoses. All right, so I'm thinking it's gonna be a pain in the ass to not remove the airbox, because if you don't remove the airbox, some of the clamps, well not this one, but the other ones, are pointed in really weird directions. So we're gonna have to remove the airbox, and in order to do that, you gotta remove those 213s. And also at the very front of the motor, there is a hose right here. And there's a clamp on that, so I have to remove that clamp. And also I believe that's gonna be where we actually access for our catch can. So we're gonna go ahead and remove that all at once. Here's that hose that I was talking about. What we're gonna end up doing is where this hose comes off of on the valve cover, that's gonna be where your catch can attaches to. Also the tube for your upper intake to your intake filter box just pulls out of the hole in that area right there. All right, so by the looks of it, this hose on one side for your catch can has a bit of a J to it. See, I'm not holding it in place, that's how it is. And that J, you're gonna run to that port at the back or at the front of the engine on the valve cover. So we'll put that on there, and then we'll tighten up that clamp, right? And then we'll follow up, we're routing the hose upwards for the catch can. And then before we install the catch can, we'll start running some of the other hoses for the turbo. And yeah, we'll go from there. Man, if anybody's gonna be doing this catch can, I highly suggest to do it at the same time you do these tubes, because there's no way getting to that without removing these tubes and the airbox. It's a fucking pain in the ass. So here's the intake tube from the airbox to the upper intake ram, and that's gonna be this guy here. And as you can see, it's basically, I don't know, I want to say 30-40% bigger. Here's a top view. In order to wrestle that guy into position, you might just want to go ahead and take this off. It's actually really easy. You got one push pin on either side here, Torx on either side, T30, and another push pin up here, and this whole thing basically just gets out of the way. So now you have access to everything, and we could wrestle this guy up until the crease, and that'll be your stopping point. Woo! What a pain in the ass that was. All right, so that sucker's in. You gotta really wrestle that thing in, so make sure you just take this off. And you can put the grill on there and the pre-filter. That's pretty self-explanatory. I'll let you guys do that. And we'll move on to the rest of the tubes. We can now start positioning the one for the turbo to the intake box. I'm out of breath. I want to show you guys all this freaking oil. This is all blow-by. This is all residue coming from my valve cover into my turbo. So a lot of oil. I definitely don't want that in my intake. All right, this is from the turbo to the intake box. They give you a plug here just in case you are installing the catch can like we are. So we're gonna plug that off. And this is the port that normally your exhaust blow-by gases circle into. So that goes right before the turbo, and that is pretty much suctioning in all those fumes back into your engine, which again, like I said, we don't want. We don't want all those oily fumes going through the turbo, going through your intercooler, and gunking everything up, because over time that starts to bake onto the walls of the turbo, and you just don't want that stuff, especially with a motor with high miles. All that stuff becomes more and more. You get more blow-by and more residue. Now we'll put the airbox back in.
Pain in the ass.
All right, both hoses from the intake box are hooked up. We'll tighten up those clamps, and then we'll move on to the hose from the turbo to the intercooler. All right, driver's side, we got all three tubes in. Just a quick tip when you're doing tubes, like well, any of these tubes, basically all of them, like this one, make sure you align it where you want it on the throttle body and on the intercooler. Push in as far as you can on both ends. and rotate it if you need to until it fits perfectly. So when installing these clamps, you're gonna want to be about, I want to say, a 1/4 inch, maybe even less, above the indentation. There is going to be like a stepped portion on the intercooler, the turbo, basically everywhere. And right after that is where you put the clamp, and that's where you tighten it down, and that creates the best seal. So these are all nice and tight now. I'm going to move on to installing the catch can real quick. But overall, very happy. This looks really good. All right, now installing the catch can is going to be a little tricky. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one of the bolts on the clamp and then feed it through the backside between the plastic and the bar, and then try to screw in the other screw. Then I could take this one back off and then, you know, go from there and install the rest. So basically not too hard. The barb fitting on this side, we are going to point it downwards like this, and we'll tighten that up. Just cut the hose to length and push it in. This is barbed, so again, you don't need to put any clamps on there. This would have been way easier if I did it with the box out of the way.
Dumbass.
So that's it. We'll mount some GoPros and let's take a listen to the blow-off valve and see how it sounds. Stick around for the next video. We're gonna be installing an RPM exhaust on this. And don't forget, glifeutv.com to pick up any of these parts you just saw on this video. And staydirtyclothing.com, where you can pick up hats that support this channel. And last but never least, big shout out to my Patreon and YouTube join members that you just saw on the screen. Those guys go the extra mile, and it makes a huge difference in this channel. Peace out. Hey, stupid bird, making a video over here.